Dark secrets of the Roman Empire's gladiators. Unmasking the blood-stained truth behind Rome's favorite spectacle. Behind the glory. When people think of ancient Rome, towering structures like the Colosseum and heroic gladiators immediately come to mind. Images of fearless warriors battling lions, facing off in duels, and receiving roaring ovations from emperors are ingrained in popular imagination. But behind the spectacle and valor lies a web of cruelty, deception, exploitation, and death, a system designed not for honor, but for control and entertainment. This is the untold story of Rome's most iconic warriors, the gladiators, and the dark truths that history has tried to bury. Not all gladiators were willing warriors. Despite the romanticized idea of gladiators volunteering for glory, the vast majority were slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals. These men, and occasionally women, were ripped from their homes, stripped of their identities, and thrust into brutal training camps. Their fates were determined not by their courage, but by their captors. However, some free men did volunteer, the auctorati. Driven by debt or the allure of fame, they willingly sold themselves into slavery for a shot at riches. But once inside the system, they found it nearly impossible to escape. The promise of freedom was often a cruel illusion. The Ludus, where men were broken and rebuilt. Gladiators trained in schools called Ludi, operated by ruthless trainers known as lanistae. These facilities were less like gyms and more like prisons with weapons. Fighters lived under strict discipline, confined to cramped quarters, and subjected to daily back-breaking drills. Whippings, starvation, and psychological warfare were common tactics used to condition obedience and destroy resistance. One of the most infamous of these was the Ludus Magnus, located next to the Colosseum, where hundreds of men were trained like beasts for the blood sport that awaited. The arena, theater of blood and control. Gladiatorial games, or munera, weren't just entertainment, they were a political tool. Emperors used them to distract the masses, maintain order, and showcase their power. The Roman motto, panem et circenses, bread and circuses, wasn't just rhetoric. It was a calculated strategy to keep citizens fed and entertained, numbing them to corruption and unrest. Contrary to popular belief, not all matches ended in death. Gladiators were valuable investments, and killing them too often was economically wasteful. But when death came, it was often slow, cruel, and theatrical. The final decision of life or death frequently rested in the emperor's hands, or the crowd's bloodlust. Rituals of death, symbolism over substance. When a gladiator fell, the crowd looked to the sponsor of the games for a verdict. The infamous thumbs down gesture, which may actually have meant thumbs turned, has long been misunderstood. Scholars now believe the direction of the thumb symbolized drawing a sword, a signal for death. If death was ordered, the victor delivered a final blow. The defeated gladiator was expected to die with dignity, offering his neck and remaining still. Failure to do so was considered shameful. Afterward, a man dressed as Charon, the mythical ferryman of the dead, would strike the corpse with a mallet to ensure death before dragging it away. Gladiators were the superstars and sex symbols of their time. Despite their lowly origins, gladiators were celebrity icons. Roman women swooned over their rugged appearance, and graffiti throughout Pompeii hints at scandalous affairs and forbidden romances. One famous inscription reads, "Crescens, the net fighter, holds the hearts of all the girls." Some gladiators even became the playthings of the elite, including emperors. The notorious Emperor Commodus, for instance, fought in the arena himself, rigging matches to ensure his victories and humiliating Rome's nobility in the process. A life measured in fights. The average lifespan of a gladiator was shockingly short. Though skilled fighters could survive several bouts, most perished within a few years. Even the most successful, like Flamma, who reportedly fought 34 times and refused freedom 4 times, knew each match could be their last. Freedom, when it came, was symbolized by the rudis, a wooden sword. But surviving long enough to earn it was rare, and many chose to continue fighting, either because they had no place in society or because the arena had become the only life they knew. Rebellion in chains, the Spartacus uprising. No account of Gladiators is complete without Spartacus, the Thracian warrior who led the most famous slave revolt in Roman history. Along with 70 fellow gladiators, he escaped from the Ludus at Capua and raised an army of thousands. For 2 years, Spartacus and his followers ravaged the Roman countryside, defeating multiple legions before finally falling in 71 BCE. His crucifixion, and that of over 6,000 of his men, served as a grim warning. Yet his rebellion remains a symbol of defiance against tyranny. The end of the games, a world outgrown by blood. As the Roman Empire crumbled and Christianity rose, the appetite for blood sports began to wane. In 404 CE, Emperor Honorius banned gladiatorial games after a Christian monk named Telemachus was stoned to death by an angry mob for trying to stop a fight. Though the echoes of the arena faded, the legends of the gladiators endured, shaped more by myth than truth. The reality, however, was far grimmer, a tale of suffering, survival, and the brutal machinery of empire. The legacy of blood and iron. The Roman gladiator has become an icon of strength, endurance, and glory. But beneath the helmet and armor lies a far more complex and often tragic reality. They were victims as much as they were heroes, tools of propaganda, property of the state, symbols of resistance. To understand the true legacy of the Roman Empire, we must not only remember the emperors and senators, but also the countless souls who fought, bled, and died for sport. The gladiators' roar still echoes, not in triumph, but as a warning of what happens when cruelty becomes entertainment.